Jiwan wiped the sweat from his forehead as he crawled through the narrow maintenance tunnel. The alien ship was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. The metal walls around him hummed with strange energy, and the air smelled like copper and ozone. "Pass me the plasma cutter," Jiwan called back to his partner. Hyunwoo handed him the tool with a worried look on his face. "Are you sure we should be going this deep into the ship?" Hyunwoo asked. "The Kaleth workers looked scared when we told them where we were headed." Jiwan shrugged and fired up the plasma cutter. "We're here to fix the damage from the battle. The readings show the worst problems are in the core section. We can't do our job if we're afraid of every dark corner." The two humans had been working on the Emperor's flagship for 3 days now. The massive ship had taken heavy damage in a fight with space pirates. Scorch marks covered the hull, and several sections had lost power completely. That's why the Kaleth Empire had asked for human help. Humans were new to the galaxy. Earth had only joined the Galactic Federation 5 years ago. Most alien species saw humans as primitive and reckless, but humans had one skill that impressed everyone: they could fix almost anything. While other species followed instruction manuals and safety rules, humans would tear apart a machine and rebuild it better than before. "I found the problem," Jiwan said as he cut through a twisted piece of metal. "The power conduit got melted in the attack. No wonder this whole section is dead." Hyunwoo squeezed through the tunnel to join him. They were in a vast chamber now, filled with pipes and cables that glowed with soft blue light. The ceiling stretched up into darkness. Everything was built on a massive scale, meant for the 8-foot-tall Kaleth warriors. "Look at the size of this place," Hyunwoo whispered. "What do you think it's for?" Before Jiwan could answer, heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber. A group of Kaleth workers appeared, led by their supervisor, Kelton. The aliens looked nervous, their scaled faces showing worry. "Human workers," Kelton said in his deep, rumbling voice. "You should not be in this section. It is restricted." "Restricted?" Jiwan stood up and brushed dust from his work clothes. "The damage report showed massive power failures down here. We can't fix the ship if we can't access the damaged areas." Kelton exchanged glances with the other Kaleth. "This section contains old technology, very old. It is better left alone." "Old technology still needs maintenance," Jiwan said. He was getting curious now, which usually meant trouble. "What kind of old technology?" "Nothing that concerns you," a new voice said. Emperor Thalax himself entered the chamber, surrounded by his royal guards. The Emperor was massive, even for a Kaleth, with golden scales and eyes like burning coals. "Human Jiwan, you will work in other sections only." Jiwan felt his stubborn streak kicking in. Back on Earth, he'd been known for taking apart things he wasn't supposed to touch. His curiosity had gotten him in trouble more times than he could count. But it had also made him one of the best mechanics in human space. With respect, "Your Majesty," Jiwan said, "the power grid failures are all connected. If there's a major system down here that's offline, it could be affecting the whole ship." Emperor Thalax's eyes narrowed. "You will not question my orders, human." But Jiwan was already looking around the chamber with new interest. If the Emperor himself had come down here to warn them off, whatever was hidden here had to be important. His eyes caught something in the far corner, a section of wall that didn't match the rest. "Jiwan," Hyunwoo whispered, tugging at his sleeve. "Let's just go work somewhere else." But Jiwan was already walking toward the strange wall section. As he got closer, he could see it wasn't really part of the ship's original structure. It was older, made of a different material that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Symbols were carved into its surface. Not Kaleth writing, but something much more ancient. "Stop," Emperor Thalax commanded. "Do not go near that barrier." "What's behind it?" Jiwan asked, running his hand along the strange symbols. They felt warm under his touch, almost alive. "Something that should remain sleeping," the Emperor said. His voice carried a note of fear that surprised Jiwan. What could scare someone as powerful as the Kaleth Emperor? Kelton stepped forward. "It is a relic from the architects," he said quietly. "The race that ruled the galaxy before any of us existed. They vanished millions of years ago, but their technology remains. It is too dangerous to study." The architects? Jiwan had heard rumors about them. Every spacefaring race had legends about the mysterious builders who had left massive ruins scattered across the galaxy. "What kind of relic?" "An engine," Emperor Thalax said reluctantly. "A Titan engine, they called it. It has been dormant since we found it. Our scientists believe it could power 1,000 ships or destroy a solar system. We built this ship around it, but we have never dared to activate it. Jiwan's eyes lit up. An engine that could power 1,000 ships? His engineer's mind was already racing with possibilities. He pressed closer to the barrier, studying the symbols. Some of them reminded him of mathematical equations, others looked like circuit diagrams. "It's beautiful," he breathed. "It's deadly," Emperor Thalax snapped. "The last time architect technology activated, entire worlds were turned to glass. We will not risk such destruction again." But Jiwan wasn't listening anymore. He had found what looked like an access panel hidden among the symbols. His fingers traced the outline and he felt a slight vibration. The panel was responding to his touch. "Jiwan, no," Hyunwoo shouted. "Don't touch that," Emperor Thalax roared, lunging forward, but it was too late. Jiwan's curiosity had won, as it always did. His palm pressed flat against the panel and everything changed. The symbols flared to life with brilliant white light. The barrier shimmered and faded away like morning mist. Beyond it, Jiwan could see a chamber that took his breath away. The Titan engine filled the space like a metal mountain. It was beautiful and terrible, covered in more of the glowing symbols. Conduits and cables snaked away from it in every direction, connecting to the ship's power grid. But what made Jiwan gasp was the way it seemed to recognize him. The symbols pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, and he could swear he heard something like a voice whispering at the edge of his mind. "What have you done?" Emperor Thalax whispered. The ancient engine hummed to life, and the lights throughout the ship flickered as power levels spiked. In the distance, alarms began to wail. Jiwan stared at what he had awakened and wondered if his curiosity had finally gotten him into more trouble than he could handle. The Titan engine's hum grew louder, sending vibrations through the ship's hull. Jiwan stood frozen in front of the massive machine, his hand still tingling from touching the panel. The symbols covering the engine pulsed faster now, creating patterns that hurt his eyes to look at directly. "Get away from it," Emperor Thalax shouted, but his voice seemed distant and muffled. Jiwan tried to step back, but something was happening to his mind. Information flooded into his thoughts, not words or pictures, but pure knowledge. He suddenly understood that the engine wasn't just a power source. It was alive in some way, aware and waiting, and it had been waiting for him. "The power levels are going crazy," Hyunwoo called out, checking his scanner. "The whole ship's electrical system is overloading." Throughout the flagship, lights flickered and displays sparked to life. In the command center, Kaleth officers stared in shock as screens activated that hadn't worked in decades. Ancient systems buried deep in the ship's structure began responding to commands that no one had given. Captain So-young was in the archaeology lab when the alarm started. She was one of the few humans aboard who studied alien cultures instead of fixing their machines. When her equipment detected the massive energy surge, she dropped her research and ran toward the source. "What's happening?" she asked as she burst into the engine chamber. "The human touched the architect panel," Kelthan said, his scaled face pale with fear. "The Titan engine is awakening." So-young looked at Jiwan, who was still standing motionless in front of the massive engine. His eyes were wide and unfocused, as if he was seeing something no one else could see. "Jiwan," she called out. "Can you hear me?" He turned toward her slowly, and when he spoke, his voice sounded strange. "It's showing me things. The architects, they didn't disappear. They're still here in the machine." Emperor Thalax stepped forward, his royal guards raising their weapons. "Human, you will step away from the engine immediately." "I can't," Jiwan said simply. "It won't let me." "Not yet." The engine's hum changed pitch, becoming almost musical. New symbols appeared on its surface, spreading like growing vines. The patterns reminded So-young of neural networks like the ones in human brains. "Your Majesty," she said quietly, "I need to scan the engine. If it's really architect technology, this could be the greatest discovery in galactic history." "It could also be the end of us all," the Emperor replied. "The architects were powerful beyond imagination. Their weapons could crack planets in half, but So-young was already running her scanners. The readings made her gasp. The neural interface patterns, they're almost identical to human brain structure. No wonder Jiwan could activate it. "What does that mean?" Hyunwoo asked. "It means the architects designed this engine to respond to minds like ours," So-young explained. "But that's impossible. Humans weren't even evolved when the architects vanished." On the command deck above them, a Kaleth officer named Tae-hyung was monitoring long-range sensors. He had worked with human crews before and respected their abilities, even if he didn't understand their reckless nature. When his displays showed something approaching from deep space, he almost couldn't believe the readings. "Commander," he called to his superior, "we have an object incoming from the galactic edge. It's massive." "How massive?" Taehyung checked his readings again. "Roughly the size of a small moon, and it's moving toward us at incredible speed." Back in the engine chamber, Jiwon was experiencing visions of the past. He saw the architects as they truly were, beings of pure energy who had once built great cities across the galaxy. He watched their war against something dark and hungry that came from beyond the stars. He felt their fear as they realized they could not win. "They left the engines as keys," he said aloud, his voice echoing strangely. "Keys for their chosen inheritors. They've been waiting for us to find them." "Chosen inheritors?" Emperor Thalax demanded. "What nonsense is this?" "Not nonsense," Soyoung breathed, studying her scanner readings. "The genetic markers. Humans share DNA sequences that don't exist in any other known species, sequences that shouldn't exist naturally. The implications hit her like a physical blow. We're not just compatible with architect technology. We're designed to be compatible. The architects modified our ancestors millions of years ago." Before anyone could respond, the ship's communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect human English, though no human was transmitting. "Inheritors," the voice said. "The awakening has begun. The seed ship approaches." Emperor Thalax's guards raised their weapons, but there was nothing to shoot at. The voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Who are you?" the Emperor demanded. "We are what the architects became," the voice replied. "We are their memory, their knowledge, preserved in the great engines. We have waited so long for our children to find us." Jiwon blinked and seemed to come back to himself. The connection with the engine remained, but he could think clearly again. "Children?" he asked. "Humanity," the voice explained. "Shaped by our hands in the distant past. Prepared for this moment when you would be ready to inherit our legacy." "What legacy?" So-young asked, though she was afraid of the answer. "The responsibility of guardianship," the voice said. "The war we fought is not over. The Devourers sleep beyond the galaxy's edge, but they will wake when they sense our technology activating. You must be ready." Commander Taehyung's voice crackled over the intercom from the command deck. "Your Majesty, the approaching object is transmitting. It's using human languages and appears to be trying to communicate with our human crew members only." Emperor Thalax looked at Jiwon with a mixture of fear and anger. "What have you brought upon us, human?" "I don't know," Jiwon admitted. "But I don't think we can stop it now." The Titan engine pulsed brighter, and throughout the ship more systems came online. Ancient weapons that had been dormant for millions of years began charging. Shields that could withstand Starkiller weapons activated automatically. "The seed ship contains our full legacy," the voice continued, "but it will not share its gifts with those who are not ready. You will be tested, inheritors. Your worthiness must be proven. And if we fail?" Hyunwoo asked. The voice was quiet for a long moment. "Then the galaxy will face the Devourers without guardians, and all will be consumed." Outside the ship, space began to shimmer as something vast approached. The Kaleth fleet scattered in panic as sensors registered an object too large to be natural. The seed ship had arrived, and with it, humanity's destiny. Jiwon looked at his friends and saw his own fear reflected in their faces. He had touched something he shouldn't have, and now the entire galaxy might pay the price. But deep in his mind, the architect knowledge whispered that this had always been meant to happen. The real question was whether humanity was ready for what came next. The seed ship filled the view screen like a metallic moon. Its surface was covered in the same glowing symbols as the Titan engine, creating patterns that shifted and flowed like living things. The Kaleth fleet had pulled back to a safe distance, their weapons trained on the massive construct, though everyone knew their firepower would be useless against something so enormous. Communications Officer Yunji was the first to detect the transmissions. She sat at her station aboard the human escort frigate New Seoul, watching her screens light up with incoming signals. But these weren't normal radio waves or quantum transmissions. The messages were going directly into her mind. "Captain Dongho," she called out, her voice shaking. "I'm receiving some kind of telepathic communication from the seed ship." It's in Korean." Captain Dongho left his command chair and moved to her station. "What kind of messages?" "Fragments," Yunji said, pressing her hands to her temples. "Like memories that aren't mine. I see images of a great war. beings made of light fighting against things of shadow and hunger. And there are coordinates, star maps pointing to locations across the galaxy. Aboard the flagship, Jiwan was experiencing the same visions but much stronger. The Titan engine was acting like an amplifier, making the connection with the seed ship crystal clear. He saw the architects' final days, their desperate preparations as the Devourers approached their homeworld. They didn't have time to stop the invasion, he said to So-young, who was recording everything. So they preserved themselves in the engines and sent their knowledge away in the seed ships. They've been waiting for a species that could understand their technology. But why humans? Emperor Thalax demanded. He had been listening to reports from across his fleet, and the pattern was clear. The seed ship only responded to human minds. What makes your species so special? So-young looked up from her readings. It's not that we're special naturally. The architects made us special. The genetic modifications they performed on early humans weren't random. They were creating a species that could interface with their technology. You're saying they designed humans to be their replacements? Hyunwoo asked. More than that, Jiwan said, his eyes still glowing faintly from his connection to the engine. They designed us to be their inheritors, to carry on their role as guardians of the galaxy. The implications sent shockwaves through the galactic community. Emergency sessions were called in the Federation Council. Some species demanded that humanity be quarantined before they could access whatever weapons the seed ship contained. Others argued for immediate alliance with the apparent chosen ones. Ambassador Seung-hwan was in his office on the Federation station when the urgent calls started coming in. As Earth's primary representative to the galactic government, he found himself at the center of a political storm unlike anything in recorded history. The Viridian Empire is mobilizing their war fleet, his aide reported. They're demanding that humanity surrender all individuals who have made contact with architect technology. And the Zephyrian Collective? They're offering a formal alliance and requesting joint research agreements on any technology gained from the seed ship. Seung-hwan rubbed his tired eyes. In a matter of hours, humanity had gone from being a minor member species to the most important faction in the galaxy. The responsibility was overwhelming. Back on the flagship, physicist Yuna had arrived from Earth aboard the fastest courier ship available. She was one of the few humans who had studied theoretical architect technology, and her expertise was desperately needed. The energy signatures don't match anything in our database, she reported after running her scans. But the mathematical principles underlying the technology are surprisingly familiar. It's almost like the architects used advanced versions of theories that human scientists are just beginning to develop. Because they taught us, Jiwan said from his position near the Titan engine. Not directly, but through genetic memory. The curiosity that drives human scientists, the way we approach problems differently from other species. It's all part of their design. The seed ship began transmitting more complex messages. Images flowed into the minds of humans across the fleet, showing star maps with highlighted systems. Each location contained dormant architect installations, waiting to be awakened by human touch. But the messages also carried warnings. The Devourers were not extinct, merely sleeping in the void between galaxies. The activation of the Titan engine had sent ripples across space that would eventually reach them. When they woke, they would come with a hunger that could consume entire civilizations. How long do we have? Emperor Thalax asked, his anger giving way to practical concern. Years, perhaps decades, the architect voice replied through the engine. But you must use that time wisely. The Devourers are stronger now than when we fought them. Only a united galaxy can hope to stand against them. United under human leadership? The Emperor said bitterly. United under the guidance of those who can wield our weapons. The voice corrected. Leadership must be earned, not inherited. As if responding to this statement, the seed ship began to move closer to the human vessels. Its massive bulk dwarfed even the largest Kaleth battleships. When it came to a stop, a section of its hull opened like a flower, revealing a docking bay that seemed designed for much smaller ships. It wants us to come aboard, Captain Dongho reported from the New Seoul. The docking bay is generating a signal that matches our ship's configuration codes. Emperor Thalax watched the human ships begin moving toward the seed ship. His advisors were urging him to attack while the humans were vulnerable, to destroy the seed ship before humanity could gain access to universe-changing technology. But something held him back. Your Majesty, Taehyung said quietly, our strategic analysis shows that attacking the seed ship would likely fail. The energy readings suggest defensive capabilities beyond our understanding. And if we let the humans gain access to architect weapons, then we hope they prove worthy of the trust placed in them, Taehyung replied. The alternative is facing the Devourers without any advanced technology at all. Jiwon felt the engine calling to him more strongly now. The seed ship wanted him specifically, the one who had first made contact. But accepting would mean leaving everything behind, possibly forever. I have to go, he told his friends. The architect's memories are showing me what's inside the seed ship. It's not just technology, it's a complete education in how to be galactic guardians. What if it's a trap? Hyunwoo worried. What if it's not? Jiwon replied. What if this is exactly what humanity needs to grow beyond our current limitations? So-young made a decision. I'm going with you. This is the archaeological discovery of a lifetime, maybe several lifetimes. One by one, other humans volunteered to enter the seed ship, not just scientists and soldiers, but artists, teachers, and philosophers. The architect technology seemed to want a complete cross-section of humanity, not just specialists. As the first human shuttle entered the seed ship's docking bay, sensors across the galaxy detected new activity. Dormant installations on distant worlds began powering up, responding to signals from the ancient construct. The age of human guardianship was beginning, but in the deep void beyond the galaxy's edge, something else was stirring. Ancient hunger was awakening, drawn by the taste of familiar energy signatures. The Devourers had slept long enough, and they could sense that their old enemy's technology was active once again. The race against time had begun. Inside the seed ship, Jiwon and the other humans found themselves in a vast chamber that defied physics. The space seemed to extend infinitely in all directions, yet they could see walls covered in flowing symbols. The air hummed with energy, and whispers of ancient knowledge touched the edges of their minds. Welcome, inheritors, the architect voice said, now clearer than ever. You have answered our call, but answering is not enough. You must prove your worthiness. Holographic displays materialized around them, showing scenes from across the galaxy. Jiwon saw civilizations rising and falling, wars between species, acts of great kindness and terrible cruelty. It was a test of judgment, he realized. The architects wanted to see how humans would react to the full spectrum of galactic history. The first test is wisdom, the voice explained. You will witness the mistakes of past civilizations. Learn from them, for you must not repeat them. Meanwhile, outside the seed ship, the galactic community was in chaos. 5 major species had formed a coalition to destroy what they called the human threat before it could fully develop. Their combined fleets were gathering at the edge of the system, preparing for an attack that would determine the galaxy's future. Admiral Keth of the Viridian Empire commanded the coalition forces. He was a veteran of countless battles, but he had never faced technology like what the seed ship represented. His ships carried the most advanced weapons available to the galactic powers, yet he suspected they would be useless against architect defenses. Are we really going to attack beings who might be our only hope against a greater threat? His communications officer asked. We're attacking humans who have gained access to universe-ending weapons, Keth replied grimly. Whatever these Devourers are, they're a theoretical threat. Human ambition with architect technology is a real one. Emperor Thalax watched the coalition fleet approach with mixed feelings. Part of him wanted to join the attack, to prevent humanity from gaining such overwhelming power. But another part remembered the warnings about the Devourers and wondered if destroying the seed ship would doom them all. Inside the construct, the humans were facing their second test. The chamber had changed, becoming a simulation of a war-torn planet. Civilians of various alien species huddled in ruins while armies fought overhead. The test was clear. How would they respond to suffering? Yuna immediately began analyzing ways to restore the planet's infrastructure. So Jung focused on preserving the cultural artifacts that were being destroyed. Captain Dongho organized evacuation routes for the civilians. Each human responded according to their nature, showing compassion and practical problem-solving skills. The second test is compassion, the architect voice observed. Power without empathy leads only to tyranny. You show promise, but not all humans passed every test. Some showed prejudice against certain alien species. Others suggested solutions that would benefit humanity at the expense of others. The architect presence noted these failures without judgment. understanding that no species was perfect. The third test was the hardest. The chamber became a replica of an architect city during their final war against the Devourers. Massive shadow creatures poured from rifts in space, consuming everything they touched. The weapons available to the humans were incredibly powerful, planet killers and star breakers that could end the invasion instantly. Use them, some humans urged. Destroy the enemy before they can spread. But Jiwan hesitated. Through his connection to the architect memories, he could see the consequences. Using such massive weapons would save this world but render it uninhabitable. Worse, the destruction would create a beacon that would draw more Devourers. There has to be another way, he said. The architects thought the same thing. The voice replied sadly. In the end, they chose transcendence over destruction. They became one with their technology rather than use it to commit genocide. What if we could do both? So Young suggested. Use the technology to protect rather than destroy. Create barriers instead of weapons? The simulation shifted, showing new possibilities. Instead of destroying the Devourers, the humans worked to contain them, to cut off their food sources and trap them in isolated dimensions. It was harder than simple destruction, requiring cooperation with multiple species and careful coordination of resources. The third test is restraint, the voice said, with what sounded like approval. The greatest power is knowing when not to use it. Outside, the coalition fleet had begun its attack. Energy beams that could melt asteroids struck the seed ship's hull without leaving a mark. Missiles that could crack moons exploded harmlessly against its shields. The ancient construct didn't even seem to notice the assault. It's useless, Admiral Keth reported to his allies. Our weapons have no effect. We might as well be throwing rocks at a mountain. Then we retreat and plan a different approach, the Zephyrian commander suggested. No, Keth said grimly. If we can't destroy the seed ship, we destroy the humans before they can leave it. The coalition fleet began targeting the human ships that remained outside the seed ship. The New Soul and several other vessels came under heavy fire. Their shields, advanced by human standards, began to fail under the concentrated assault. Inside the seed ship, alarms sounded as the humans became aware of the attack on their people. The fourth test had begun without announcement. How would they respond to a direct threat to their own kind? We have to help them, Captain Dongho shouted, moving toward what looked like a control interface. Wait, Jiwan said, his connection to the architect knowledge providing insight. This is part of the test. They want to see if we'll use their weapons in anger. The interface that Dongho was approaching would give him control of the seed ship's defensive systems. With them, he could easily destroy the attacking fleet. The temptation was enormous. His friends and colleagues were dying while he stood by and watched. Sometimes fighting is necessary, Yuna said quietly. But it should never be our first choice. Instead of activating the weapons, Jiwan reached for a different control. The seed ship's shields extended outward, enveloping the human vessels and protecting them from further attack. It was a defensive rather than offensive action, showing restraint even under direct assault. The fourth test is protection, the voice said. You choose to shield rather than strike. This shows wisdom. The coalition fleet found their weapons completely ineffective against the expanded shields. Worse, their own targeting systems began to malfunction as the seed ship's technology interfered with their electronics. One by one, their ships lost power and drifted helplessly in space. But the seed ship didn't press its advantage. Instead of destroying the helpless vessels, it simply held them in place with tractor beams. The message was clear. The architect's inheritors were not conquerors. The final test approaches, the voice announced as the chamber began to change again. But this one you cannot face alone. Your species must choose together whether to accept the full inheritance. Images flashed through the minds of every human in the galaxy simultaneously. They saw the coming war with the Devourers, the responsibility of guardianship, and the price of wielding such power. Every human, from the colonies on the galactic rim to the homeworld of Earth, felt the weight of the choice. The vote was not held in government chambers or council meetings. It happened in the collective unconscious of humanity, a species-wide decision that transcended politics and borders. Each person made their choice based on their understanding of what it meant to be guardians rather than conquerors. The result was not unanimous, but it was clear. Humanity accepted the inheritance, with all its burdens and responsibilities. Then let the awakening be complete, the architect voice said. The seed ship began to glow with brilliant light as its full systems came online. Across the galaxy, dormant installations awakened and began broadcasting instructions to their new guardians. The age of human stewardship had officially begun, but in the depths of space, the Devourers had detected the energy signature of architect technology fully activated. Their hunger stirred, and they began the long journey toward the galaxy's edge. The real test was yet to come. 6 months had passed since the awakening, and the galaxy was a very different place. Human crews now operated architect installations on dozens of worlds, learning to use technology that could reshape solar systems. But with great power had come great responsibility, and humanity was discovering that being guardians was much harder than being explorers. Jiwan stood on the bridge of the Guardian's Promise, one of the new hybrid ships that combined human engineering with architect technology. Through the viewports, he could see Earth's newest orbital defense platform, a massive structure that could project shields around the entire solar system. Similar platforms were being built around every inhabited world in human space. Any word from the deep space sensors? He asked Communications Officer Yunji, who had transferred to the new Guardian fleet. Still nothing from the scout probes, she reported, but the architect installations on the rim worlds are detecting movement in the void. Whatever's coming, it's still years away. Jiwan nodded grimly. The Devourers were real and they were coming. Long-range sensors had detected massive objects moving through the empty space between galaxies, heading straight for their spiral arm. The architect memories called them the hunger that walks between stars. Creatures of pure consumption that converted matter and energy into more of themselves. "Captain," called out Tai-Hyung from the tactical station. He had requested transfer from the Kaleth fleet to work with humanity's new Guardian forces. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Emperor Thalax. He's requesting a meeting." The relationship between humanity and the other galactic powers had been tense since the awakening. Some species had embraced humanity's new role, seeing them as protectors against the coming threat. Others resented being dependent on a species they had considered primitive just months ago. Emperor Thalax fell somewhere in between, respectful of human power but wary of human intentions. "Put him through," Jiwan said. The Emperor's scaled face appeared on the main screen. Despite his initial hostility, he had proven to be one of humanity's most valuable allies in preparing the galaxy's defenses. "Guardian Jiwan," the Emperor said formally, "I have disturbing news. Our scouts report that several rim worlds have gone silent. No distress signals, no communication attempts, they simply stopped transmitting." Jiwan felt a chill run down his spine. "How many worlds?" 7 so far, all in the outer spiral sector. "My advisors believe it might be equipment failure or natural disasters." But you think it's something else," Jiwan finished. "The pattern matches what our historians found in architect records. Worlds going silent in sequence as something moves from system to system." Jiwan closed his eyes and reached out through his connection to the architect network. The ancient installations throughout the galaxy were linked in a vast communication web that let him sense disturbances across thousands of light years. What he felt made his blood run cold. "They're early," he whispered. "The Devourers are already here." The bridge fell silent as the implications hit everyone. They had been preparing for an invasion that was supposed to be years away, not months. The defense networks were incomplete. The fleet was undermanned, and most of the galaxy still didn't fully believe in the threat. "All ships, emergency protocols," Jiwan ordered. "Signal the other Guardian vessels. We're moving to intercept whatever hit those rim worlds." As the Guardian's Promise and her escort fleet jumped to hyperspace, similar scenes were playing out across human space. Ambassador Seunghwan was coordinating with the Galactic Federation to organize a united response. Captain Dongho was leading evacuation efforts for the threatened worlds. Dr. Yuna was working frantically to activate more architect installations before the enemy arrived, but it was So Young who made the most important discovery. Deep in the archives of the seed ship, she found records of the architect's final battle against the Devourers. The enemy wasn't just powerful. They were intelligent, capable of learning and adapting to new threats. "They're not mindless destroyers," she reported to the Guardian Council. "They're strategic. The architect's memories show them analyzing each civilization they encounter, finding weaknesses, turning strengths against themselves." "How do we fight something like that?" Yenwu asked from his position as chief engineer of the Earth defense grid. "By doing what humans do best," Jiwan replied from the bridge of his ship. as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the threatened sector. We adapt faster than they do. The first Devourer scout was unlike anything in their nightmares. It wasn't a ship or creature in any recognizable sense. It was a living void, a patch of space where matter simply ceased to exist. It moved through the system like a cancer, consuming asteroids, moons, and anything else in its path. Conventional weapons have no effect, Taehyung reported after the fleet's first attack run. Energy beams pass right through it and missiles are absorbed before they can detonate. Then we try unconventional weapons, Ji-won said, activating the ship's architect systems. The Guardian's Promise fired its primary weapon, not a beam or projectile, but a focused distortion in space-time itself. The attack struck the Devourer scout, and for a moment, the void creature writhed in what might have been pain. But then it began to adapt, its form shifting to deflect similar attacks. It's learning, Yoonji warned. Whatever we hit it with, it becomes resistant to. Then we don't give it time to learn, Ji-won decided. All ships coordinated assault with different weapon types. Keep switching. Don't let it adapt to any one attack. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Human ships wielding architect technology fought alongside Kaleth battleships and vessels from a dozen other species. They used gravity weapons, dimensional shears, quantum torpedoes, and exotic energy types that had no names. Each attack damaged the Devourer, but none could destroy it completely. It was Captain Dong-ho who found the solution. His ship, the New Soul, was smaller and more maneuverable than the others. Instead of attacking the creature directly, he flew into its center and activated his ship's self-destruct sequence, not to explode, but to create a dimensional rift that tore the Devourer apart from the inside. Dong-ho, Ji-won shouted, but his friend's sacrifice had worked. The scout creature collapsed in on itself and vanished, leaving only empty space behind. The victory was costly but important. They had learned that Devourers could be killed, but it required sacrifice and creativity. More importantly, they had proven that the different species could work together when faced with a common threat. This was just a scout, Ji-won announced to the combined fleet. The real invasion force is still coming, but we've shown that we can fight them. Over the following months, more scout encounters occurred throughout the galaxy. Each battle taught the defenders new tactics, while the architect installations worked overtime to produce better weapons and defenses. Humanity found itself at the center of the largest military alliance in galactic history, not as conquerors, but as coordinators. The irony is perfect, Emperor Thalax observed during one strategy meeting. The species we thought was too primitive to understand advanced technology is now teaching us how to use it. We're not teaching, Ji-won corrected. We're learning together. That's what makes humans good guardians. We know we don't have all the answers. The main Devourer force finally arrived 3 years after the first scout encounter. They came not as individual creatures but as a swarm that darkened entire star systems. The final battle took place at the galaxy's edge, where the combined fleets of every major civilization made their stand. Ji-won piloted the flagship of the Guardian fleet, a massive vessel that was part human engineering and part architect technology. Around him flew ships from hundreds of different worlds, all united under human coordination but fighting as equals. The battle lasted for days. Devourers fell to coordinated attacks and sacrificial runs, but more kept coming from the void between galaxies. It seemed hopeless until Ji-won made a desperate gamble. Using his connection to the architect network, he linked all the Guardian installations across the galaxy into a single massive weapon. The energy drain was enormous. Entire star systems dimmed as power was redirected to the galactic defense grid. But when the weapon fired, it created a barrier of pure force that sealed the galaxy's edge, cutting off the Devourer reinforcements. It's working, Yoonji reported. The barrier is holding. The remaining Devourers, cut off from their source, were systematically destroyed by the combined fleet. When the last one fell, the galaxy erupted in celebration. They had won, but the cost had been tremendous. This won't be the last time, Ji-won told the victory celebration. There are other galaxies out there, other Devourer swarms. We'll need to stay vigilant. We will, Emperor Thalax replied. And we'll do it together under human guidance. Years later, Ji-won stood once again in the engine chamber where it all began. The Titan engine hummed quietly. No longer the feared relic it had once been, but a trusted tool in humanity's role as galactic guardians. Do you ever regret touching that panel? Hyunwoo asked, joining his old friend. Ji-won considered the question. Humanity had gained incredible power and responsibility. They had enemies across the universe and the weight of protecting countless civilizations. It was a burden that would last for generations. No, he said finally. Sometimes the most dangerous thing